My crazy entitled sister organized with her friends to steal my bike and dump it in a lake as some form of weird twisted revenge. But after dealing with her attitude my entire life, I refused to take this sitting down, demanding that she give me my bike back or else I was going to call the cops. And I've honestly never been more frustrated with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this situation is downright crazy. I seriously never thought my sister would do something like this. To get straight to the point, my parents and sister were angry at me for regularly eating in a hospital cafeteria, all because it was close to my work. I enjoy the peace and quiet there on the days I do show up to eat, but this situation escalated so radically that I can't believe that something this dumb actually happened. My sister did the pettiest thing she's ever done to me, and it was all for completely undeserved reasons too. Now, when my sister found out I was eating at the hospital cafeteria, she went off on me. She was fussing at me about how that food is just for people who are at the hospital because they need to be there. We ended up in a big argument about it, in which I told her it wasn't like I was taking food from the mouths of patients. Then she went to our parents to get them on her side just like always, and they immediately sided with her just like I thought they would. They backed her up on how the hospital cafeteria was not a place to go eating casually, and we had a big argument. They spent days hounding me and telling me that I was wrong and demanding that I stopped. So I went online to find some kind of advice to help me out, and here I learned that not only was I not doing anything wrong, but it's a very common thing for people to go eat at hospital cafeterias just because they like to do it. Now, I had hoped that the situation would have just faded away, but a few days later, my sister called me asking if I stopped eating at the hospital. But when I said no, this all just started all over again. My parents then called me fuming, acting like I was supposed to stop going because they said so. I reminded them that I don't live under their roof anymore, and this is exactly the reason why I moved out. They take my sister's side on almost everything, and the entire time they're huffing and puffing about it. This time the fight didn't stay at home though. Other relatives found out because my sister tried to broaden her support. She was so dead set on enforcing her will upon me that she went looking for help from other relatives. But our parents were the only ones on her side, and my uncle personally admonished my parents and her over the phone for it once I told him what actually happened. He then told them that they were only siding with my sister because she's their favorite, and that they're terrible parents for ever playing favorites to begin with. Then my cousin went to eat with me at the hospital cafeteria and said that he would like to go there once a week as well, as he also works nearby and takes a bicycle everywhere. And we've run into each other at lunch there once before already. He was actually rather pleased to find out the food was made healthier than most other places. And trust me, he is a very picky eater, so this place is kind of his new lunch hangout. And my sister got even angrier after finding out that there were other people in the family eating at the hospital now as well. Once outed, my parents backed down due to embarrassment. They apologized to me and gave me some malarkey that they honestly thought eating at a hospital was weird and that they just felt like they needed to defend my sister. I told them that they had been placating my sister for so long that it's all they do whenever she starts something with anyone. She's been treating me like a condescending control freak and a bully since we were teenagers, even though I'm older and they just kept enabling that. But I won't be putting up with it anymore. My parents ended up conceding and then apologized. They then made my sister apologize too, and I could tell that she hated every second of it because she tried to speak through her teeth at first. Later on, my parents invited me to dinner as another form of apology, but it felt more like a show to look good to the rest of the family because they told everybody about it before it even happened. And honestly, the dinner was great, I can't deny it. My parents had cooked a turkey, and arguably it's one of my favorite things to eat. Now, here's where things really get messy. Later, after the family dinner, I noticed that my bike was missing. I had parked it in the backyard out of sight, but it was just completely gone. Now, I started to freak out because this is my only mode of transportation, and my parents did panic with me, but my sister seemed just the opposite. She actually looked happy and was giggling. Well, when I saw that, I immediately suspected her, but she just played innocent. She even looked at me and said, "Oh, I can't believe you would think I would ever do something like that." I already know she's extremely petty, but this is a whole new level even for her. So I said I was going to go over to the neighbor's house because I know that they have cameras, so they definitely would have seen what happened, and then I'm gonna call the cops. Well, when I said that, my sister suddenly looked extremely panicked, and I got mad and said I knew it was her. And right then and there, I demanded my bike back. But right at that moment, she started started to cry, saying that she didn't do anything, and our parents were immediately taking her side while scolding me for daring to accuse her like that. So I had had enough, and I said I was going to the neighbors to check their cameras, and then I'm definitely calling the police. Once everybody knew I was serious, my sister finally fessed up and called me to come back. The looks on our parents' faces after they just defended her were priceless. My sister said that she was just so angry at me for having made her apologize for something she still believed she was right about. So she planned to have a couple of her friends to come and grab my bike during dinner. She said her friends were in a minivan with it just down the street. She then started saying that I couldn't call the police on her anyways because I'm her big brother, with our parents backing that up as well. But you know what I did? I pulled out my phone and I started marching outside again. They ran after me and my sister begged and cried for me to stop, but I just called her a brat, and then I told my parents I couldn't believe they were still defending her when she was acting this way. Our parents finally hit their enabling limit with her and told her to make her friends bring back the bike immediately. She got on the phone while sniffling and called her friends up, but then she suddenly ran into her room to talk to them. I couldn't hear a thing that she said through the door because it was all whispers, and our parents looked very worried as well. My sister would never willingly admit that she had my bike stolen. She just kept sobbing that it was only a prank over and over again, and she kept using the same excuse that it's just a cheap bike anyways. I mean, I did buy it used some months ago for $50, but it's in great shape, and it's my main mode of transportation. My sister kept looking at our parents to back her up, and that time they just simply couldn't do it. So she just slumped down in a chair, hugging her knees and waiting with the rest of us. My sister looked increasingly freaked out the longer her friends took to bring my bike back, and was repeatedly texting them over and over again. Even though my sister said her friends were just down the street, it took them roughly an hour to bring my bike back. They finally pulled up in the minivan with my bike shoved in the back, and it was completely soaked and all muddy, almost as if they'd pulled it out of a wet, muddy ditch. The bike is a 700C, so it's too tall for either of them to ride. So they just drove right up and stole the bike by dragging it into the van as fast as they could before taking off. And I say they stole it because I was almost certain in the moment my sister had told them to dispose of my bike. I mean, had I not pointed out the neighbors having cameras, I may have never gotten it back. When her friends did finally arrive, their legs were all muddy and wet nearly up to their knees. They both begged me not to report them to the police for taking the bike, but I asked while recording them to tell me the truth and pointed out that the neighbors have cameras. I wanted to know right then and there, did my sister want them to get rid of my bike? Well, they started to break down and they said yes. My sister wanted them to take the bike and dump it in a pond a few miles away, and they had to go back and get it when they realized that they were caught. My bike had been near completely submerged in muddy water, but thankfully I didn't have many added accessories on it besides a detachable headlight and my water bottle. But even then, the water bottle was missing. Now, I wasn't surprised by what my sister's friends told me, and I had them tell our parents too. Well, when they heard that, they laid into my sister till she was bawling on the floor, kicking and pounding like a toddler. And I had never seen my sister act that way since she actually was a toddler, and I found it mortifying that she was still like this on the inside. Then she shut herself in her room. Her friends were banned from ever coming to my parents' house again, and then my sister was forced to come out of her room by our mother and make another big apology to me. Our father then forced her to wash and oil my bike from stem to stem, all under his supervision, while I took apart the headlight and cleaned it out to dry it. By the time my sister was done, it was dark outside. She glared at me like I was the devil when she came back in the house, but our parents shut her attitude right down and said they've never been more embarrassed by her in their lives. She went back to crying in her room, and I had a very frank discussion with my parents about my sister's childlike behavior and how it all stemmed from their spoiling and enabling. I said that I couldn't believe that I had to be the voice of reason, but the fact that she was on the floor crying like a toddler, kicking and pounding, showed that she's still mentally a child because of them. And they kept making me the scapegoat when she's the one that screwed up, so she barely knows any sense of accountability. For once, they didn't argue with me about it, and then my father silently drove me and my bike back to my apartment with his SUV. He also gave me some money to replace my bike's missing water bottle before we parted ways. Now, my sister and her clique of friends used to bother me a fair bit whenever we ran into each other, and they liked to make fun of me as a group whenever possible. And I usually just ignored them because they bored me, and that really seemed to tick them off. But after the bike incident, I got sent numerous messages from numbers I didn't even know that were cussing cussing me out for making my sister cry over a silly prank. Knowing her, my sister probably fed everyone she knew a very different story on what actually happened. So I texted lengthy replies of the real story and even stated that I have recordings of her friends admitting the truth. Some people at my sister's college found out what actually went down, and this might have been from my text messages or her friends spilling the beans, but it embarrassed my sister so much that she came home having a crying temper tantrum about how people were calling her and her friends awful names, as well as accusing them of being bike thieves. Now, I may not have gone to college, but I know students who need them are very protective of their bikes. I mean, after all, a lot of them live on shoestring budgets. My sister said someone even joked that they shouldn't leave a bike around her because it might just disappear if she had to apologize to anyone. My sister ended up so upset that she refused to leave her room for 3 days just so she could continue the pity party. My parents called me up to try and turn everything on me again, but I reminded them about the discussion we had literally days before and that they needed to stop babying her and to let her deal with the repercussions of her actions. If she fails her classes again, it's because she's not trying like she should be. Then I went off on how they're just looking for someone to blame just to make her feel better. But you know what? She made the problem, not me. And I was not going to be the one they make the scapegoat any longer. My sister is an adult, and she really needs to act like it. Now, at this point, they sound defeated, and then apologize before ending the call. And it looks like they were genuinely hoping I'd just sit back and take the blame, just so my sister would feel better, but I'm just never going to do that again. Now, my parents are trying to pretend this all never happened, and my sister as well as her clique are avoiding me at all cost, which I suppose is fine, because seriously, I don't want any more drama. Because trust me, the next time something like this happens to me again, I will not be taking it from any of them ever again. Yeah, your sister is super crazy for doing that. Like seriously, who plans to have someone else's property stolen all because the other person has to apologize? Like that is such a crazy response to saying I'm sorry. Like I can understand not liking your siblings and not liking the decisions they make, but to orchestrate your brother's bike getting stolen simply because you lost an argument and you're pissed off, like that is such a huge escalation. There's just no good excuse for that. Like the barrier of entry for not doing something insane in this situation was so low that it's bonkers to me that the sister still failed to be a decent human being. Like seriously, just don't steal other people's stuff. Like that's super simple. And also, what kind of friends would be willing to do something like that for this sister? Like they seriously went along with this and said, yeah, we'll help steal from your brother. We'll show him. Like these people are adults. They do know that, right? Like if the original poster wanted to press charges and be like, hey, I've got all the evidence I need to like put you in jail for stealing from me, he easily could have done that. Not to mention the camera footage from the neighbor literally across the street, because I know for a fact if my friend came up to me and said, hey, let's steal from my brother, and oh, by the way, we're gonna dump his bike in a lake, I would be like, wait a second, what are we doing? This is not okay. So all of them are just as guilty as one another. They willingly went along with this when seriously, any rational human being would have been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna back out of this and not talk to this lady ever again. So honestly, good for you for proving that your sister orchestrated all of this, because based on the way your parents were acting, I'm pretty sure they would defend her no matter what. And hopefully nothing like this ever happens again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend is furious with me after I told her I was getting a dog that she doesn't like, and I'm honestly so confused by her reaction, and I'm worried that our friendship might be over. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened very recently, and I'm honestly unsure of how to handle it. I can't believe this is an issue to begin with, so this may be a bit of a rant. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I have a friend who is in her 50s, and we are close friends. The kind where you don't talk often, but when you do, it's always really good. We mainly talk about our pets, and she's been there for me a lot, and I really do value her and our friendship. But there is only one issue. It is never a good idea to disagree with her. She has very strong opinions and will shove them down everybody's throat. She's also notorious in all pet stores, and all for the wrong reasons. I'm not too bothered by it. I just know when to shut my mouth and agree. Arguing is not worth it, and I find our friendship more important than being right about something. It has never really been a problem until now. When I brought up wanting a Doberman, she was rather judgmental, saying that I'm too insecure to raise a dog and that a dog wouldn't solve my mental problems. I found her assumptions harmful and very untrue, even if she probably meant well. Obviously, a dog won't make my mental illness illness go away, but I think taking care of a dog and having a companion has been helpful for a lot of people, especially someone with mental illness. It just so happens that a Doberman is exactly what I want, as they fit my lifestyle. I'm also not as spineless or insecure as she made me out to be. But the thing is, I just don't like to argue with her because I know that she would end our entire friendship over me not agreeing on something. I don't waste my energy on an argument that won't lead anywhere. So I just didn't mention it again, and I wasn't super upset. I just decided not to talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I sent a video of a puppy that I have my eyes on. I hoped that maybe she would be happy for me, and somehow I thought that she would be, but instead, she sent me a voice message demanding I tell her which exact reasons I have to get a Doberman. It made me feel like I had to justify my decision to her, almost as if I needed her permission or something like that. Now, me having this dog won't affect her in the slightest, so I find this weird and honestly kind of entitled. Also, I knew she would disagree with all of my reasonings, so I politely said that I know she doesn't think that I'm the right person for this, but that I disagree, and I've done a lot of research, which I definitely have. I have considered this for literally years, although I didn't talk to her about it until I previously mentioned the dog. I just didn't see a reason to, and I still don't. Like I said, it doesn't affect her, and it's not like we talk a lot or even talk about everything. I told her she has nothing to worry about and that the decision wasn't impulsive. Well, she immediately got upset. She said I was very defensive, even though I acted calm and I was very polite. However, I simply disagree and I just didn't want to justify my decision. This is probably the first time I said no to her, and she started going off about how dangerous this dog is, that it's not the right breed for me, and that she knows a lot more about this than I do, and that I should be able to explain why I want one, especially to her. Now, she does know a lot about animals, but judging by what she said about the breed, she seriously does not know as much as she claims. They were very outdated views, and some of the facts were just so wrong. She said that I only want this dog to have as a shield, and that I'm going to end up with a weapon that I can't control. But I said multiple times that I understand and respect her opinion, and that I was sorry for upsetting her, but that I simply just don't agree, and I didn't like her initial question. According to her, I turned her into something that she's not, and I was the one being extremely defensive. But again, I was very calm, and I was never accusatory, while she was the one who sent me long voice messages in which she was yelling and crying. It seems like everything I said just made her more angry. She ended by saying I've insulted her and that I should know what that feels like. I said I was sorry about that, and that I hope we can talk about this when we're both calm. Now, at this point, I am extremely confused about what I did wrong, and I am honestly kind of angry because I feel like she's simply mad at me for not agreeing with her. She knows as well as I do that I will put all my time and energy into this dog, that I am someone who will make well-informed decisions and won't hesitate to ask a professional dog trainer for guidance. And even if we are close, we are not so close that I need to involve her in all decisions like this. But it seems like she thinks I can't do this without her approval. Now, I haven't heard from her since our argument, and I suspect that she expects me to apologize. And I'm now unsure of what to do, except wait until she calms down, and then she'll talk to me again like nothing happened. I might have to rethink this friendship, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, the lady you're talking about in this story is not your friend. No friend in their right mind would stop being your friend all because you disagree with them. Like, she sounds crazy, and I mean that quite literally. She has these strong opinions, and she's almost like policing everything that you do. And that is not a good friend. That's not even close to being a friend. That's just some controlling jerk who wants to like rule your life. And you definitely do not deserve that. And it's so bizarre for her to be like, wow, you don't deserve that dog. Give me the exact reasons why you want a Doberman. It's like, lady, what are you talking about? This isn't your mother. You don't have to like report to her about anything. And you know what? I know plenty of people whose mental health have improved because they own a dog. It gives you a routine, there's someone that is relying on you, and the dog literally forces you out of bed to feed and walk them. In my opinion, there are so many benefits of having a dog. So for her to be like, wow, that's not the right dog for you, that's a really insane thing to say, and honestly so unacceptable. And the icing on the cake, in my opinion, is the fact that she kept screaming, I'm not being defensive, you're being defensive. She was trying to act like you're the one being super defensive and accusatory and turning her into something that she's not. Meanwhile, she's sending you all these messages literally yelling and crying because you're getting a Doberman. Like, that seriously sounds like she's projecting her own emotions on you, and that seriously is like insane in my opinion. So no, you do not need this lady's approval to get a dog, and hopefully you can see that she is not a good friend sooner than later, because her behavior is seriously unacceptable, and you do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.